It's October now, which is generally understood to be the month when most people on this website put aside everything else going on with their channel to alter its aesthetic and talk about some spooky, scary bullshit. But honestly, that's kind of hard for me to do. It's hard for me to do timed content in general, but when it comes to this holiday, it just doesn't feel right because I'm not that much of a horror guy. I don't like media that's actually scary or gross out or anything like that. I'm not into like stories of psychological terror. I was never much into weird creepypasta shit on the internet, but I'll tell you what. I can do free certain kinds of spooky. There are free kinds of spooky that when I'm in the right mood, I can give a shot. I'm into cool spooky, I'm into fun spooky, and occasionally, just because it happens to come onto my doorstep, I do tend to get into some bad spooky, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, because longtime viewers of the channel will know that way back when I did my historical, culturally significant masterpiece that I'll never escape as long as I live, Power Rangers Megaforce Sucks, in the very first part of it, when I was kind of hyping up how bad that show was, I did this little bit where I went, oh, the worst toku show I've ever seen is, and then I cut myself off and I said it's actually Kamen Rider Ghost, but we're going to be talking about Megaforce today anyway. And ever since then, much like a actual undead specter, Kamen Rider Ghost has sort of followed me around as this thing that nobody quite knows my exact reasons for not liking it, because I tend to just be kind of passive aggressive about it, and well, maybe one day I'll make Ghost Sucks, maybe one day I'll do that. And now that we're fully into this different, more casual style of video making, I don't think I ever want to go back to doing something quite as intense as Megaforce Sucks. So, you know what, before we get too heavy into the spooky season, why don't I just go ahead and talk a little bit about Kamen Rider Ghost, because, well, it kind of feels like a moral imperative now, considering the show has had somewhat of a resurgence in popularity in the last few years. A lot of people have discovered the show post-mortisely and actually gone to bat for it. And you know what? To each their own. I'm not here to shit in anyone's cereal, but I don't like this show, and we're going to talk about that. Hey everybody, I'm the Vacuuminator, a guy who loiters in front of buildings he's not even sure the exact purpose of, because there doesn't seem to be anybody in there today, and rants about Japanese children's shows that are meant to sell plastic to hardworking parents as their children scream at them for it. And today, if you could be so kind, I'd like you to support that endeavor by liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that good stuff that we'll talk a little bit more about later. But right now, let's just get right into it. Kamen Rider Ghost. Why doesn't Vac like Kamen Rider Ghost? Well, it's funny that that's sort of become an ever-present question in my life, because, quite honestly, I don't understand how anyone could like this show. This show that is filled with lazy, overly saccharine writing, is filmed poorly, has some of the most garish and impractical looking suits I've seen in the entire franchise, and characters who I would genuinely like to see in so much pain. Kamen Rider Ghost is not a good show. It's not even a bad show. It's an ungodly, terrible show, in my personal opinion, because the show is a very simple concept that was coming out right at the tail end of Kamen Rider's 45th anniversary year. It's, what if we take Kamen Rider so far back to basics that we do a Rider that is based on the original monster, the original spooky, scary thing that goes bump in the night, just a spirit back from the land of the dead. And we use that concept. We use that concept in conjunction with the core Kamen Rider concept of a person who is turned into something that could be monstrous but chooses to fight for justice against the thing that turned them into that. And it kind of just immediately shirks that instead to do some pseudo-spiritual shit that's much more based in Eastern mythology that is very hard to understand. And even when I do go and research it, it seems like they're flanderizing a lot of stuff to make it more palatable to kids. Like, don't get me wrong, I get it. Different cultures have different interpretations of what the afterlife is like and how spirituality and all that works. But when you put Ghost in the last couple episodes of Drive, and remember, this was a fairly new concept at that time. Before then, it had always been a short cameo in the Versus movie, and then nothing until the show actually started. When you put Ghost in the last episode of Drive, and he's doing all this floating around and tricking people and being a spooky, scary trickster, and then you get to the actual show, and he barely does any of that, it really does confuse and anger a guy. This is really where I started to get that idea in my head that, like, you can't take the Rider cameos seriously at all. It's funny because it's actually been fairly consistent with suit acting in the Reiwa era, but back then it was like a total crapshoot whether or not you get a guy that feels anything like the guy in the show in his initial cameo, which kind of sucks because I like the idea of Ghost being a spooky, scary trickster who's hunting these mystical artifacts to bring himself back to life, and the show doesn't actually do a lot of that. It's the initial premise, but the actual character of Kamen Rider Ghost, Takeru Tenkuji, whose fucking name will never leave your head if you watch more than one episode of this show, because it's drilled into you during the first 15 seconds of every goddamn episode that his name is Takeru Tenkuji and he died on his 18th birthday. It's also just fucking insane, that whole backlog, how it starts off somewhat sensible telling you that, and then telling you like some basic stuff that's happened since then, but then they're still doing it in the 30s, and it's like, hey, I'm Takeru Tenkuji, I died when I was 18, I came back to life as Kamen Rider Ghost. Also, this guy Alan is up to some shit, I don't fucking whatever, let's just get into the episode. Like, if you're gonna do a first episode info dump, you need to keep it incredibly simple, or you need to alter it completely every episode, or it's not gonna flow well, man. That's like a basic thing I think most TV shows get, and yet in Kamen Rider Ghost, it's a huge thing that sticks out like a sore thumb, just like everything else. Like Takeru's basic characterization, which you get the feeling that there's like two minds at work with him. There's people in the writer's room who want him to be the goofy trickster boy they teased in the movie, and then there's other people who are like, nah, he should be a layabout who has to learn to take life seriously. And then he never quite actually goes on either of those arcs, or in fact, we barely see that initial characterization in the show, and they keep trying to do the arc of the layabout who becomes serious, and they keep resetting it and resetting it and resetting it, so much so to that by the point you get all these side characters in the show who all have their own stuff going on, they don't have time for it anymore, and it doesn't feel like it ever stuck. And you have all these characters who are just going around talking about what a great guy Takeru is, how he's the fucking best, and oh, I would just do anything for him, you know, he's the coolest, most amazing, most kindest, specialist little boy ever, and it doesn't feel at all earned. And it's especially glaring when you have other shows on at around the same time, like Zyuohger, the Sentai that was airing alongside Ghost, where Yamato is the main character, and he does a lot of hard work and has a lot of stuff happen to him, but he's also just generally a good person, and that's why people always talk him up, and it feels earned there, unlike in Ghost, where shit just kind of happens to Takeru, and he acts like a bit of a whiny bitch who's always just going like, do I have to do this? I have to go through this to come back to life now? Okay. And somehow everybody becomes his friend and loves him. And that is without getting into the entire rest of the cast, all of Takeru's various friends. And I'm just gonna say it, this cast is way too fucking bloated for a writer show. There are so many superfluous characters in here, like Shibuya and Narita. What the fuck do those guys matter to the main plot? What do they ever fucking do? I think one of them gets a focus episode that's pretty decent. Actually, probably the best episode of the whole show. But it doesn't matter to the main plot. And then the other one is just there. Like, why the heck were they put in the show? Is it just we have to have assistants at the temple for some reason? Well, then don't set the show at a temple. Save yourself some bucks. Put that into the special effects budget. Because, oh man, some of the sloppiest fights in all of Kamen Rider are in this show. I know I just started on characters, but fuck it, we're freestyling here. Let's talk about these fights, because so much of the action is just dudes flailing at each other, because it's clear that you can't get good coordination in these suits that have these big, bulky, translucent armor plates on the outside of them. And even when they do pull out weapons, it's super generic weapon action that just exists to sell the latest toy, which feels so fucking blatant. This is some of the most blatant, hey kids, buy the toys I've ever seen in Kamen Rider, to a level that it's even annoying me as somebody who considers himself to be a fan of toys first and foremost before any one property. You know, I remember having a conversation with some other friends when Ghost was airing and just pointing out how fucking weird it is that that show had so many different versatile weapons that Ghost's big sword could turn into that he arguably doesn't need, because all of them are just different types of bladed weapons or shooting weapons. And only a few years prior in Kamen Rider, it was like you get a sword and a gun, or you'd get a sword with a gun in it, or you get just a sword. There's now so many little tricks and doodads that these things can work with that it doesn't at all feel worthwhile. Getting back into characters, I have to say Onari is probably the most annoying comedy relief character I've seen in anything, not just in Tokusatsu. Like, I feel so bad for the poor actor being forced to just ham it up harder and harder, and either not being able to get there or not pulling it off in a way that's at all entertaining to me. Like, I've heard of shows that have comedy relief characters that just feel like it's jangling keys in the kid's face to make them laugh and be entertained, but this is on a whole other level. Of every episode, there's like 2 or 3 times where they take time out of the script to just shove the camera in Onari's face and have him do something goofy. I will admit, a couple of times jokes did land for me, but that was because of the context in there. The actual thing he was doing was not hilarious, but the fact that he would be doing it in a police station or in a casting office made it kind of funny. But the fact that the camera was getting shoved in his face pretty much ruins it every time. And that's just getting into like little minor characters that annoy me. We haven't even gotten into like big recurring things that pissed me off, like fucking Akari, who is a character type I just cannot stand. I just cannot stand the character who is in the world of fantastical things and regularly denies them and keeps saying, oh, science will explain this, I'll explain this with my science, and then never actually gets there and just starts having blind faith in it all. Like, and it's not even to say like you can't do that character arc believably. There are some great versions of that character arc out there, but Akari's not one of them, because she's another one of the characters that just keeps denying and denying and denying until eventually she just starts going, Takeru's great. I don't believe in all this shit, but, Takeru's really great, so he'll get through it and he'll make it all work. I believe in him. I believe in his Kokoro. And then you have the other writers in the show. Spectre, who I actually really like in his debut episodes. I love that he shows up and just starts... He actually starts confronting Ghost and calling him on his bullshit. You keep saying you want to do these things, but you're not having strong enough conviction, and you're just kind of lucking out through all of this because of your powers. You need to get good or someone's going to challenge you. And I really wanted the whole show from that point on to just be the two of them fighting over the icons, and like everyone's icon loadout always slightly changing between episodes, kind of like how the metals would change loadouts in O's all the time. But nope, after a few episodes, we bring that initial hunting the 15 icons arc to a close, and Makoto's kind of just reduced to being best friend man. Just guy who goes around in his ridiculous motocross outfit looking like a fucking skeleton with a G.I. Joe costume over him, talking about how great Takeru is and how much he cares about his sister. Potentially a little bit too much if that episode where we go into his subconscious is anything to judge by. Which really sucks, because I thought the actor had some really good angst chops going on. I loved the Spectre suit the first time I saw it, and his belt sounds are way cooler than Ghost's. But no, just best friend guy. He's just there for a long time. Pretty much the whole show until they start to do an evil twin arc during the final few episodes. And that just kind of peters out and goes nowhere because they don't actually have time for it. And then there's Necrom. Alain. Everybody's favorite fucking guy. For some reason. I genuinely feel so old and disconnected from the rest of the world whenever I see people talking about how great a character this is and how he has such a beautiful and robust redemption arc, when literally he just shows up and starts going on about like how perfect his utopia is, and then his dad dies and he gets sad, and this lady keeps telling him how great this fucking Japanese treat is, and then she dies, and then he goes, I guess I'll be a good boy now. I guess I'll fight my brother. Like, what? This is what we're doing, the big triumphant fight too? We're gonna have this man fucking dance around and fight mooks while shoving balls of batter in his face? And people think this looks cool? People really think this looks cool. Okay. Christ alive. And his suit looks trash, by the way. I know there's people out there who love the suits in this show, but I'll be honest with you, after that initial 10, 13 episodes, I think the suit design really goes downhill. And it was even kind of flawed to begin with the translucent armor padding that's all over it and clearly hinders the suit actor's body motion. But, the initial ones had kind of cool jacket and face designs, and I could get with that. But then you get to shit like Boost and the jackets that get layered over him and have these horribly clashing colors, and the weird kind of armor plating and dive helmet and ridiculous changer that hangs 5 feet off of Necrom's arm. And it's just what are we doing anymore? What is going on here? Plus, there's the fact that a lot of the upgrades aren't even introduced all that well. I know a lot of people have a huge soft spot for the Boost introduction episode, and I'll grant you it's one of the better episodes in the show just in terms of having some solid performances and a really good thematic cohesion to it. But sorry, as an atheist, your dad coming back from the dead and giving you superpowers doesn't actually do anything for me. I can't suspend my disbelief hard enough to actually enjoy that or take it seriously. And the fact that it happens, the way it happens, just kind of feels trite to me. Like, he fucking gave up his wish, and we're just gonna reset the timer so he can get another one. And he's going to keep dying and coming back to life several more times after that. In retrospect, that moment has no impact at all, especially because Ghost now has his dad in an icon. He could talk to him at any time he wants, and he never fucking does that. And then there's Grateful Soul, which I actually think is a pretty good idea for a final form. I like the fusing all the powers together. I just feel like it should have been at that point he got his wish and we moved on from that what at the time basically became a subplot. You know, the whole we got to stop the Gamma Utopia people from taking over our world. That was the main plot, and Takeru trying to come back to life was almost secondary. I feel like if you had just had it be like, oh, he wishes he comes back to life and gets the power to fight the Gamma, and that's how he gets Grateful Soul, I feel like that would have been a lot more interesting than just retreading, oh, I gotta make friends with all the icons all over again, but I gotta form even deeper bonds with them, deeper bonds than I hugged somebody and shed a single tear. That was a weird thing that was in all the initial Focus episodes. Whatever. And then Infinity Soul is so weird how it gets this really half-assed, just kind of thrown out there introduction and is there for a few episodes, and then they do an actual debut fight for it, which isn't all that exciting because we've seen it at that point. And the whole way they justify it being a thing is all of a sudden we find out that Takeru's dad was obsessed with him potentially having infinite potential. Because everything has infinite potential. But Takeru has infinite potential, so that makes him special somehow. Again, what are we doing here? And that's without even getting into the villains, all of which feel kind of lazy and half-assed in my opinion. I mean, you have Sionji, who's just a dude with fucked up teeth who also wants to get the icon so he can get unlimited power, and then he gets Indiana Jones style comeuppance before we're even halfway through the show. And then you have all these various general dudes, some of which they try to do like a redemption arc with, some of which feel like they really overstay their welcome, and some of which are Seiji Takeiwa being completely wasted in his first face role on Kamen Rider. And then you have the Gamma royal family, who all suck in their own unique ways, because Adonis is not as all charismatic or interesting and has ill-defined goals. They kill him off as soon as they realize that, and they move to Adele, who also has really ill-defined goals that just kind of boil down to, I want to control everything because I'm evil, I guess. I'm gonna make a good utopia, I guess. Whatever. And then you have the Ganmisers, who are just this generic mystical tribunal of fuckers and have no real personality other than we are all-powerful computer beings. And then you have Kamen Rider Extremer, who's literally just a fucking reused suit from the movie. Like, what? What? Were you even trying? Come on. How do people like this? How do people find these characters at all interesting or captivating? How can people suffer through episodes upon episodes of the same generic, I'm evil, I guess, bullshit, and Takeru being the best and trying his best to be a whiny bitch, and Spectre just being there, and Alan having fucking God damn it. God damn it. Jesus fucking Christ. Why am I doing this? Why is this my life?
俺は天空寺健。俺は大天空寺の跡取りだ。天空寺俺は18歳の誕生日したガンマに18歳の誕生日がある。仮面ライダーゴースト仮面ライダー仮面ライダーガンマ英雄の英雄ガンマに本当に戦うガンマに戦いを挑んだけど俺はガンマ仲間の力を見るだ。他のうちに使えらせるガンマの世界に平和されたあとの地枠に知らない。だから俺は仮面ライダーゴーストになった39日。
And I haven't even gotten into, like, the little shit that bugs me about this show yet. Like, how everyone is wearing these really stupid, colorful clown outfits for most of the show, and barely ever change clothes that really just look like bullshit some high-off-their-ass fashion designer came up with, and Bandai said, yeah, we could sell that for $500 a pop on our fucking premium website. Let's just stick them in that. And the villains just have, like, generic Nazi or Evangelion outfits? Come on. Or, like, in the fight scenes, there's shots where you can see boom mics, there's shots where you can see the trampolines they're using. It just looks very shoddily put together, and it doesn't help at all that at the end of the show it all just kind of coalesces into this generic believe in yourself, connect your life to the future, kids. It feels so insulting, especially when this show is sandwiched between two much more thematically deep seasons of Kamen Rider that I really like. And I don't know, maybe I would like Ghost more if I could have binged through it for the first time like the kids today can, but I had to suffer through this shit week after week, picking it apart and going, why isn't this working? Why is this like this? What the hell are they smoking at Toei this year? And it's just incredibly an incredibly disappointing time to be a Tokusatsu fan. That was just filled with whiplash. Every week it would be, okay, do I watch Ghost and then reward myself with Zyuohger, or do I watch Zyuohger now because I'm hyped up to watch it, or do I subject myself to Ghost? That was the existence of a Tokusatsu fan in the year Ghost came out, and I'm kind of sick of pretending like it wasn't, or being like, oh, no, it wasn't, man. Kamen Rider Ghost is genuinely a bad, terrible memory for me, to the point of where I've actually tried to make videos about it multiple times since that initial Megaforce Sucks tease. It was originally planned that it would be like, oh, once a year in the back half of the year, I'll do a This Tokusatsu Sucks kind of video series, and I'll do that, and I never got around to it. And then I tried to do something like a big compilation of a bunch of talking about Ghost in chunks this year to try and do it, and I just couldn't stomach rewatching this show. And I don't know. All I know is it's been a thing that doesn't have a proper explanation for such a long time that I don't like Kamen Rider Ghost. And it's not even that I hate it anymore. It's not even that I would want to make a video called Kamen Rider Ghost Sucks. I don't think I'm going to title this video that, because it's just personally like, I don't care for this thing. And I'm sick of telling people that and having them react like that it requires some kind of big grand explanation. Like, I need to make the next Megaforce Sucks and it needs to be about Kamen Rider Ghost. I don't care. Like I said at the start, I don't like things that put me in a bad state of mind. I don't like scary, spooky bullshit. I don't like bad media. And whether or not you think Ghost is good or bad and want to argue your point of view on it with me, I don't care. I don't like it. I shouldn't have to interact with it anymore. And it's been this thing that has followed me around for years. And so here it is. Here's the video about I don't like Kamen Rider Ghost. Here's why. I don't, as you could probably tell from most of this video, I don't even have that strong of feelings about it anymore. to form super coherent, like, intense critiques. I'm not Dan Olson out here being like, here's exactly why this thing is terrible and I'm brilliant for pointing it out. I'm just kind of like, man, this shit was fucking stupid. I didn't like it at all. And if you did, fine, whatever, but here it is, all out off my chest. Now, when I say, fuck Kamen Rider Ghost, you guys have context for it. So, I hope you're happy. I hope this satisfies your curiosity. And if it did, hey, maybe think about supporting the channel in the YouTube algorithm, like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, all that good stuff. I've got a Patreon. You can throw me a buck, get access to a monthly exclusive podcast and your name in the end credits, get the videos a little early sometimes, maybe. And I got a t-shirt store. I never plugged that fucking thing because I never fucking add to it, but if you want this shirt, it's on there, so I guess go for it. Anyway, I'm the Vacuuminator. Feels kind of weird to say it, but you never fail until you stop trying. That's what I'm supposed to say at the end of every video. But man, I want to stop trying to talk about Kamen Rider Ghost. I want this shit to be over. I can't wait to make this video public and be fucking done with it. I might not even reply to comments on this video. Fuck it. Have a good day.